Weekend Edition.
Good morning, I'm Connor James. Today is Sunday, July 14th. Barry made landfall last night as a hurricane, but soon reverted back to being a tropical storm. The National Hurricane Center says dangerous storm surges, heavy rains, and wind conditions continue across the north central Gulf Coast. CBS News' Hillary Lane has more from New Orleans.
Barry is making its slow move over Louisiana. The storm hit the state's southern coast as a Category 1 hurricane Saturday, but almost immediately weakened to a tropical storm. Now rain threatens large parts of the region.
Usually we'd say, okay, the worst is over, but actually the worst is just beginning right now because the heaviest rain bands are just beginning to move on shore.
The Coast Guard rescued a dozen people from flooded areas of Terrebonne Parish, south of New Orleans. In New Orleans, a flash flood watch was extended through Sunday evening.
The expected rain, as you know, could lead to flooding throughout the city of New Orleans. We are not in any way out of the woods.
New Orleans built a multi-billion-dollar flood protection system after Hurricane Katrina, and now Barry will put it to the test.
No Mississippi River levee has been overtopped, and not a single levee in the state of Louisiana, as of right now, has failed or breached.
But this levee in Myrtle Grove, south of New Orleans, was one of several that have overtopped. It is not a key levee protecting the Mississippi River. Early Saturday, water from Lake Pontchartrain filled the streets of Mandeville, about 30 miles north of New Orleans, creating some lighter moments for residents as the Gulf rides out the storm. Hillary Lane, CBS News, New Orleans.
Heavy rains have also lashed coastal parts of Alabama and Mississippi. Now let's check in with meteorologist Kelly McShane for a look at your forecast this morning. And Kelly, I know those rains are going to move up here eventually, but a nice day today.
Yes, for now we are looking pretty dry. We can go ahead and check outside Floyd County right now, Stonecrest. We see those beautiful blue skies, and we're going to keep those for the next few days until we do get those tropical rains. I'll talk more about that in my full forecast. But as far as fog goes, definitely less foggy than yesterday. However, we could still see some fog in those valley regions, so be sure to just take it easy on the roads this morning. And those temperatures are into the upper 60s to low 70s. A little bit muggy out there, but not feeling too bad as you step out the door. And just watch for that patchy fog this morning, but I think most of us are not going to see it. And we could see an isolated storm or two this morning as well as this afternoon. I think this afternoon holds a little bit better of a chance, but overall we're going to see partly cloudy skies, and I will break down how Barry will impact us in just a few minutes, Connor.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Well, Kentucky State Police say a body was found at a house at May Street in Harlan on Friday. Police say the property owner was cleaning up when he found a decomposed body in the basement. No one had lived at that home for 6 years. The body was sent to Frankfort for an autopsy. Police did not release a name, but say this could be related to a missing persons case. Well, early yesterday morning, a Bell County man died in a crash in Claiborne County. Charles Gibson was from Miracle. Officials say Gibbons went off into an embankment. 3 people were inside the truck and were taken to the hospital. The Tennessee Highway Patrol says no one in the truck was wearing a seatbelt and that alcohol played a part in the crash. Well, in western Kentucky, an 8-year-old was killed during a hit and run. It happened in Harrodsburg. Police say the driver, Bradley Mattingly, was caught less than 15 minutes after leaving the scene. Police charged him with reckless homicide and leaving the scene of an accident. A police officer has been suspended largely without pay after he admitted to sending racist text messages to an ex-girlfriend. According to the Owensboro Messenger-Inquirer, Officer Stephen Phillips was suspended 26 days beginning July 3rd. Phillips, who is white, signed a document accepting the suspension. A lawsuit by family members of victims of a deadly 2017 plane crash in Barron County claims an air traffic controller did not provide the pilot the safest options. It claims the controller told pilot Scott T. Foster to climb 3,000 feet through icing conditions instead of turning around and landing at the nearest airport. A Federal Aviation Administration spokesperson said the agency doesn't comment on litigation. On Friday, Vice President Mike Pence visited detention centers near the southern border. Pence called on Congress to act, demanding more money to support customs and border protection. He says that could ease overcrowding at these facilities and stop the flow of illegal immigrants. The issue of immigration has caused a national debate over the role of local law enforcement and what they should be playing and enforcing in federal laws. Garrett Weimer looks at the impact it has on Kentucky.
Shining their lights and holding their signs, a crowd in Lexington joined 700 other cities for a vigil Friday, protesting detention centers at the southern border and other U.S. immigration policies. Meanwhile, advocates here are prepared for the fallout from possible ICE raids beginning this weekend in major cities. The Community Response Coalition of Lexington helps the families of people arrested or deported for immigration reasons. The all-volunteer group says it's unclear what the expected major raids could mean in a place like Lexington, but they say they're always ready to help families left behind.
Emergency response is our average day. So we're cautiously optimistic that the raids will hopefully not reach us right away, but we don't know, and we're set up for the eventuality that it might be. We have our volunteers ready to go, phone activated, all the materials we need, and we can help.
The coalition is a social work organization that stays out of the politics of it. But immigration and its enforcement continue to be a big issue in policy and politics, nationally and statewide. Here in Lexington on Friday, Governor Bevin joined lawmakers and law enforcement to announce support for a new bill to ban sanctuary cities in Kentucky. The governor said the bill is not about immigration, but instead a way of better supporting law enforcement.
Ask the mayors of our two larger cities whether they think they're sanctuary cities. They'll be very quick to tell you that they're not, but we also don't want a slippery slope whereby we say we're not, we intend not to be, and yet we've directed law enforcement this way, that way, to the end degree that we would, by the perception of some, be such a thing. So it's just to clarify and get out in front of it.
If passed, the law would stop any city from putting sanctuary policies in place. In Lexington, Garrett Weimer, WKYT.
Officials say federal immigration raids are expected to start today in communities around Atlanta, Baltimore, Chicago, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, and San Francisco. Well, U.S. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey swung through New Hampshire yesterday, one of a half-dozen Democratic presidential hopefuls crossing the Granite State this weekend. In Manchester, Booker joined incumbent Mayor Joyce Craig to help rally supporters and canvass the city in support of Craig's re-election.
I am running because I believe in us. I believe that we, at this point in our nation's history, cannot fall into the trap of defining ourselves by what we're against.
In Exeter, Booker told a group of supporters that he's learning from his Democratic opponents and hopeful that Americans will define themselves not by what they are against, but what they are for. On Friday, the Ohio Department of Health announced the state's first confirmed measles case since 2017 in Stark County. The young adult who was infected had recently traveled to a state with an outbreak. The virus can bring on symptoms like a rash, high fever, diarrhea, and cough. The only thing you can do to prevent the virus is to get your shots. There have been 2 confirmed measles cases here in Kentucky this year. And newly released surveillance video shows a massive explosion that destroyed a KFC in North Carolina. The brick sides of the building collapsed. A window was thrown about 100 feet. No one was hurt. An employee told police that he was closing the restaurant when he and others smelled gas. The manager reportedly tried to turn off the nozzle and called the gas company. Well, coming up on Mountain News this morning, a Pottery Barn is getting ready to debut a special collection of products inspired by a popular TV show. And coming up in sports, Anthony Davis was introduced in LA yesterday, and he's wearing a new number.
We will see another nice day here in the mountains, but we do have a slight rain chance. I'll have those details coming up next.